IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hi guys, I'm your host Faiza. Before we get started with today's episode, I have a quick shout out to add, and that is to Castbox, who is supporting our episode today. Did you guys know that Castbox is the fastest growing and the highest rated podcast app on both iOS and Android? Well, yes, it has over 50 million free episodes and more than 10 million users. We also have a special treat for all our listeners. You guys could go ahead and enjoy a free 3-month premium of Castbox and all their features. All you have to do is download Castbox app, click on the Go Premium tab and enter the promo code 90days, that is 90DAYS. And voila, you have a free 3-month full premium Castbox app. Head over to your app store or to Google Play and download Castbox now. Well, over to today's episode. I am so sure you guys are gonna love this concept.
Hi guys, I'm your host Saif, and our guest traveler today is Sachin. Yes, you heard that right. Also from Mumbai, Maharashtra, Sachin Bhandary, the eccentric traveler. Maybe not cricket in this case, but his travel exploits speak out loud and clear for him. So without much ado, let's go ahead and find out where Sachin is taking us to. So with that introduction, I'd like to welcome Sachin Bhandary, or Eccentric Sachin as he calls himself. Sachin is trying to build a travel-based startup that's making long-term purposeful travel a reality for more people. Sachin, welcome to the Musafir Stories.
Hi Sachin,
Hey,
welcome
thanks.
to the Musafir Stories.
Thanks, Ev. Thanks, Feda. Thanks for having me on this podcast. I've been wanting to be with you guys for a while now, but, for good things you have to wait. So I think today is finally the day that I get to speak to you guys. So very happy to talk to you guys. Yes.
Same here,
Awesome.
Sachin.
Happy to have you.
Right. Sachin, the introduction that we gave about you is quite concise. Why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners a little about yourself and even about Eccentrips?
Yeah, sure. My name is Sachin Bhandary, and I used to be a PR professional for most part of my 20s. I worked with a PR agency for about 8 years.
Okay.
And through my teenage years and also my 20s, I always knew that at some point in time I was going to quit my job and, travel long term and learn new things. But I just felt that I had to wait it out and I had to prepare and the time would come and things like that. I probably wanted to focus on getting a, stable career, doing all the things that most middle-class Indians do. I wanted to tick some boxes of the checklist before I quit my job to travel. So that happened about 3 years ago. I quit my PR job to travel the world. But what I did is to start something called the 12 Project. So 12 months, 12 countries, 12 challenges. And that's how my blog, Eccentrips, started.
Nice.
And also the idea of long-term purposeful trips came from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So now that we've heard about the 12 project, I'd like to give a little more background about what we usually do during the podcast. So what we do usually is we pick up a destination and speak the ins and outs about the destination, how to get there, what to plan, what to see, what to do, food, all that stuff that comes with traveling and that's
Sure.
associated to tourism. But this time we've decided to pick up a different project, one sure will excite a lot of people, but because it's associated to the Indian Railways, and you did this as a part of the 12 project. We thought we'd take this up because it's a really unique way of experiencing the country, and especially for a lot of us kids from the 90s, I'd say, where trains were the pretty much chosen mode of transport or traveling. So Sachin, why don't you give us a little bit more of a background about the 25-day 25 trains project, and then we'll do a deep dive into what you did with that.
Sure. So the idea of the 12 project was I was waiting for a theme. I was waiting for something interesting to do while I was traveling. I just didn't want to pack my bags and go through countries and go through tourist destinations and sort of follow the trail that Lonely Planet has built. I wanted to do something which I felt was a bit more personal in nature, something that I myself wanted to do. When I was having these thoughts of traveling, and I was very sure that I would quit my job in a year or two, a lot of people around me, I was 29 or 30 that time, and was doing pretty all right for myself at the PR agency. Many people were saying, why don't you do executive MBA and move on to the corporate side and get a good designation and, just follow the path that most people are following. And I was like, the last thing I want to do at this point in time is to go back into a school, listen to all the theory that we are sort of tortured with in our education system. So I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a flip on the executive MBA, and I'm going to learn new things in the real world without sitting in a classroom. So, and then I looked at the calendar. The calendar had 12 months, and I was like, okay, why not try and learn 12 things in the year and each month with a particular learning project. So that's how the idea of the 12 project came. And, the first one, it was a great coincidence. It happened as a coincidence, but now when I look back, it seems almost by design that the first one was linked to trains. And I remember that when I was a kid, like how you're mentioning, and you guys would remember that too, that, every vacation when when we used to have the summer vacation, I would go back to my native place, Udupi, which is on the coast of Karnataka, close to Kerala. That time, we didn't have the Konkan Railway, so the train wouldn't go directly down south from Bombay. I live in Bombay. My parents also live in Bombay. The train wouldn't go directly down south. It would go through Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh. Of course, there's now Telangana. So I think it used to cross Telangana as well. What's present day Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and then go back north into. So it used to draw an entire circle from Bombay to Mangalore. And it would take I think 3 days and 2 nights, if I'm not mistaken. So. Yeah, and a lot of people, a lot of other kids and my parents and everybody used to hate. I mean, they had no choice, but they used to hate the journey because how long it used to be. But I remember as a kid, I used to really enjoy that. I used to look forward to that 3-4-3-day train journey because it used to pass so many railway stations, different languages, different landscapes, different types of food, meeting so many people. For me, that was the highlight of going back to my village. I mean, of course, I love my family and I enjoyed being with them, but I didn't have a problem with that long train journey. So I then decided when I was doing the 12 project that if I had to do something, the first thing probably has to be trains and it has to be India. And why not reach the last railway station in every direction within a month?
Wow.
So then I started talking to this, there are a lot of people out there. I don't know whether you are aware. There are people who are called rail fans. Okay. And they are like a group of people. They are also pretty organized. They have Facebook groups, they have meetups in Bangalore where you guys are based. There are pretty good rail fans, and they, I think, meet every Sunday and go to just admire trains and the locals, engines and stuff. So I bumped into one such YouTube channel run by a rail fan, and his name is Natarajan Chandrasekharan. He's from Bangalore as well. So I reached out to him and I told him, this is my broad idea. I want to reach the last railway station in every direction within 1 month. But I would primarily like to use trains to do that. I don't want to travel by road or by any other mode of transport. And being the kind guy that he was, and I think for him it was a bit of a dream project because he loved trains so much and he knew so much about trains. But he probably wasn't fortunate enough to take as much time off and do a project like mine. So he helped me create an itinerary, and interestingly, it came up to 25 days and 25 trains. That was the only way I could have touched all these 4 railway stations in the 4 major directions. Wow. That's why the name came up, 25 days, 25 trains. Yes.
Awesome. And you've given a nice little bit of an insight into the planning that went into it as well. Yeah, just in terms of preparation when you're getting off, how was all this done? Like, did you book tickets beforehand, or did you have to hop on from train to train and buy tickets on the go? How did that work?
So I should say that I had a certain advantage when it came to that part. A lot of people always wonder how did I manage tickets, because generally it is really difficult to get confirmed tickets on trains in India, right? So I'll just take a step back and then answer your question, Saif.
Sure.
So the idea was to reach Kanyakumari, which is the last railway station in south. In east, there is a railway station called Ledo in Assam, in eastern part of Upper Assam. In north, in the Kashmir Valley, there is a railway station called Baramulla. And in the west, the last railway station is Okha, which is after Dwarka in Gujarat. So we decided to get there, and so Natarajan put together the entire itinerary. He chose the right trains. There was also this thing of trying to do as many gauges as possible. So, for instance, of course, now most of it run on broad gauge, but meter gauge is still existent, and diesel trains are still there. And so I tried to get a sample of all kinds of trains possible in India. So that was the idea. So once the itinerary was done, what probably people who were following the project didn't know, and maybe Musafir Stories is a way to tell them background, is that my mom works with the railways. So what she had done is I had also gone and met the director of Indian Railways, one of the directors, in Delhi, and I had told him about my project. So he was kind enough to give me a letter saying that I was trying this project and I should be given whatever support is possible from the individual station staff and stuff like that. So that's how, and mom was there to take care of getting the confirmed tickets. There's also a circular ticket which you can buy, which gives you 4 stops or something like that. Okay. But again, getting tickets confirmed is something that's not very easy. So mom had to use up quotas which are available to her. So as a railway employee, she can apply for some quota to get ticket confirmed every once in a while. So she, I think, probably used the entire year's quota only for my project in that year. So that's how I got all the tickets confirmed. Most of them, at least.
Awesome. So you've set this up really nicely, and Bombay or Mumbai is or was your starting point, right, Sachin? So take us from Mumbai and southwards first, east, north, west, and back, right? So let's hit off this 25-day, 25-train project from Mumbai.
I started from Mumbai. So, of course, not exactly the platform from where the Indian Railway story started, but at least in the same railway station. So Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus, as it's called now, and Victoria Terminus is where the Indian Railway started, right? So VT to Thane was the first train run. So I started from that iconic railway station. I took a train called Mandovi Express, and this train took me to Goa. And the reason to take this train was only one. It was food. So Mandovi Express arguably has the best food in all passenger trains in India. I'm not counting or I'm not comparing with the tourist trains like your Palace on Wheels and some of the plush 5-star kind of railway services. But in your normal passenger trains, it's said that Mandovi Express from Bombay to Madgaon has the best food. So they serve some really good chicken fried rice, chicken biryani, good breakfast like shira upma, and everything top notch at really good prices. In fact, I also wrote a story about the train for DNA newspaper after speaking to the kid about how they were managing quality. So that train done. Then I got off at Madgaon. I took, I think it was Kerala Sampark Kranti or something. I just got into the general compartment, bought a current ticket, and went to Udupi, which is about 4 or 5 hours from Madgaon. And that's my native, that's my village. That's where my family hails from. So spent a couple of days there with my family. Then took a train at 3 in the morning to get to Kochi. So next afternoon, I was in Kochi. I was there to change trains, but also to meet a friend who I hadn't met in a long time. Plus, that was also the place where I went and met, if you guys remember, there was this story about a tea stall couple who had traveled to about 16 countries, who were spending all of their money.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
I remember reading about this in the paper there.
Yeah, sure. So this couple, they are from Kochi and they run a very small, humble tea stall in suburbs of Kochi.
Okay.
And they what they do is they save all of their money, most of their money, and they take a trip every year. Like a trip to an international trip, and they've been to about 16 countries. Back then, when I was visiting them, they wanted to go to the US, and it was proving a bit challenging for them. So there's this website called the News Minute. They had done a story in them, and they were also trying to do a crowdfunding. So I met them, spoke to them, had a cup of tea at their stall, and just sort of exchanged hellos with someone who I think is a travel inspiration.
Right.
Both of them. So
give you some serious travel goals, right?
Yeah. So from what I know of them, what I heard of them last, they went to the US as well. So
Great.
I think they've been to about 17 or 18 countries now, and they continue to want to travel. So from Kochi, then I took the Island Express. If I remember the name of the trains correctly, it's been a while. So from there I reached Kanyakumari. So my first part of my challenge was done.
Right.
From Kanyakumari, I reached in the afternoon, and late at night, I was supposed to get into this train called the Vivek Express. Now, the Vivek Express is a special train. It is the longest train journey in India.
Wow.
It starts Kanyakumari on Thursday night at 11, Thursday evening or night at 11 p.m.
Okay.
And it reaches Dibrugarh, its final destination in Assam, on Monday morning at like 11 or something like that, at 11. So it's Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. So 4 nights. I got into the train. When I got into the train at 11, so hardly anyone gets in at Kanyakumari. Most people start getting in in the other stations in Tamil Nadu the next morning. When I got into the train, I was the only person in that bogie, in that second class. And it was dark. Most of the lights, I think they probably didn't realize that there could be somebody traveling in that bogie from Kanyakumari. So maybe they didn't switch on the power itself. So I didn't have lights. But in the morning when I woke up, it was a completely different scene. That bogie was jam-packed with people.
Oh my God.
People with waiting list and unreserved tickets. Everybody was in the bogie, and close to the door where the wash basin or the sink is, they have these hooks, right?
Yeah.
And there were at least 20 to 30 bags hanging to that one hook. And it was like a city traffic. So, and for those 3 or 4 days that I was on that train, I don't remember even a single TC coming and checking the ticket. It was a humongous mess, but that's how India is. So that was the train.
How do you spend time for those 3 or 4 days? 2 nights and 3 days seems a bit of a challenge. Imagine about 4 nights and 3 days or whatever. How do you spend time, such a long time on that train?
So till these days, at least half part of the journey, about till 10, 12, 13 days, I was pretty okay. Like my brain was supporting me and I was in good spirits. So I always see people are always there when you're traveling in Indian trains. People are there to talk to you, and I had also made it a point not to carry too many books or have any sort of media to fall back on and build a wall around myself. I want to force myself to talk to as many people as possible because I wanted to get a feel. Like for me, it was also like understanding our country, and its people, and because sitting in Bombay and sometimes, taking flights all the time, you just get like one facet of this country, which is so diverse.
Sure.
So I was talking to people all the time, and on that train, I was pretty lucky. There was a team, the state team or handball team of Assam, which had won some medal in some Trichy. I think those were the national games, if I'm not mistaken, in the national games, and they were traveling with me in the second class compartment. So imagine this. So those sports people, when they were coming to Trichy as well, they did the same journey, which doesn't give them access to a lot of good food. Sanitation is a problem, and half of the team were women. And despite all of that, then they have to go and perform at those games.
Exactly.
And they still, and if my memory serves me right, they had won silver medals at those games, and they were on their way back, very happy with their performance at this particular tournament. So yeah, so they were there, and we were talking a lot. Their coach was a really kind, intelligent, and very nice to talk to, and he was very, very appreciative of what I was doing. He understood that, like he was telling me, you absolutely don't need to be traveling in this bogie, in this train, but I'm amazed. I mean, to a point that I think that you're a bit crazy, but still, I admire what you're doing and stuff like that. So we had a lot of conversations, and so those 3 days that they were with me, it flew by. Then after Gorakhpur, because they were getting off at Gorakhpur in Assam, and when we think of the Northeast, it almost feels like Northeast must be like really small and things like that. But sample this, like you reach Gorakhpur at like 8 or 9 in the evening on Sunday, and for you to get to Dibrugarh is another at least 12 hours. So Assam in itself is pretty huge, and we just don't realize it. So in that that night after they got off, a lot of people got off at Gorakhpur, so there weren't a lot of people, passengers in the bogie. And I was sleeping. I had a small bag with my camera, with my wallet and everything, and I generally used to keep it close to my feet when I used to sleep, thinking that was the safest place to keep it. The next morning when I woke up, everything was fine, very close to Dibrugarh, very happy about surviving the Vivek Express in second class sleeper. I take off my camera to take a picture, and I realized that something's wrong, and it took me a good 5 minutes to realize that on top of the camera in the bag, I had kept a GoPro, which I had borrowed from a friend. There was a wallet, there was my card holder, and there was another small flip camera, which again somebody had sort of given to me because he wanted me to document the journey well. Those were missing. Somebody had stolen. From
That's along with
from
your
that
wallet?
bag. Yeah, so I was arriving into Dibrugarh with no cash, no cards, no identification, and no contacts. That felt a bit stressful. It was a bit stressful. So I went to Dibrugarh. So I would say that you had to look at a highlight or a low point of my journey. It had to be, I can't really call it a low point, because what happened later was just incredible, and to a point that I think that it was miraculous. I went to the railway staff. They couldn't help me much. I went to the cops, and the cops said that, you can lodge a complaint, but if you're leaving in the next couple of days, we're not sure whether we'll be able to get your stuff back. Then one of the cops offered to drive me to the city, to HDFC Bank, and thankfully the HDFC Bank, the guy at the counter, he had studied in Bangalore. So he sort of was a bit kind. I told him my parents are from Karnataka, and I've lived in Bangalore and all of that. And I showed him on the internet. I said, why don't you just look for my name? He Googled me. He found some articles written by me and my project and stuff like that. And then they agreed to give me the cash without any identification. And it's almost impossible to get that.
I know.
So I withdrew about 10,000. They just told me you need to get just after later, why don't you get a police report and at least let us have that for our files, which I did diligently post that. Then I went to a cyber cafe, just wrote about the situation that I was in, and everybody started pouring, writing messages. So one of my clients, I used to, in my PR life, in my PR career, I used to work with Airtel as well from the PR agency, and my client on the other side, her name is Anupama Soni. She got in touch with their team in Assam, and actually sent someone to pick me up from this cyber cafe. And then that guy said, come stay with me. He helped me buy a new small basic phone. He took me to his house. We stayed with his family, and they treated me like, some sort of guest of honor. They made like mutton dishes, chicken, like 7-8 things and stuff. I was just like amazed at the hospitality, and that helped me. That made sure that I got back on the trip and I didn't miss any trains. I was taken well care of. And the next day morning, I went to this last railway station on the eastern side. It's called Ledo. That's the last railway station that the passenger trains go. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, there's another station called, I think it's called Tirap. That's where a lot of the goods train go to get some coal loaded. And beyond that, there is a railway station where trains don't go anymore. It's defunct, but the tracks still exist. It's called Lekha Pani. Okay. And Lekha Pani is actually the last railway station on the eastern side. That's where the Stillwell Road starts, which was built during the World War II, if again my memory serves me right, which goes up to Burma and stuff. So in that way, I was at a place which had an iconic place in the Anglo-Indian history. So that was my south and east.
So where do you head off from here? You said
Ledo. So I came back.
Easternmost point, right? On your challenge.
That's correct. I came back to Dibrugarh, and then I took a train to Calcutta. Not Calcutta. I went to New Jalpaiguri. From New Jalpaiguri, I went to Darjeeling. I did the toy train, as it's called, and came back, and then went to Calcutta. I had friends in Calcutta, stayed with them for a night. My mom had sent a new mobile phone. She had sent a new mobile phone. Cash I had withdrew like 10,000, so I would have been able to manage at least for a couple of weeks. So all was good. And from Calcutta, then I took I think it was Bagh Express, which it took me to Lucknow. It took me to Lucknow. Yeah, I went to Lucknow. From Lucknow, at 3 a.m, I went to this another small station close to Lucknow, which is called Aishbad. Mm-hmm. And Aishbad has narrow meter gauge train. I took a meter gauge train from Aishbad to Bareilly. So a journey that takes 2 hours takes 5 hours on that train. But
very few of those kind probably still left, right? The narrow gauge or the meter gauges.
Very few. I think in the next few years we won't have any.
Probably.
So went to Bareilly. From Bareilly, I took a train to New Delhi. And the interesting story is that a family friend that I stayed with was a friend of my cousin, the girl that I stayed with, and her family that I stayed with. They are our family friends, and she is now my girlfriend, and we are going to get married pretty soon. So you could say that the seeds of my future relationship was sown during the 25 days, 25 train. Of course, at that time, we hardly had any time. We just spoke, and we were just at best friends who exchanged, courtesies every once in a while. We didn't know what was coming. Things happen. So
this is totally a story for your grandkids.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I think that's my biggest mission in life, just to create enough stories for my grandkids, so that they never get bored of listening.
Yeah, you don't have to read out books.
Or maybe they get bored because I'll talk so much about things that happened to me in my life, and they're like, "Oh man, this old man is so full of himself,"
They'll be like kids, believe me.
Okay, let's hope so. So Delhi, and then I took this. So the only air-conditioned train I took, because of logistical reasons, was it's called Sri Shakti Express.
Okay.
Sri Shakti. So that's a completely air-conditioned train, and that was the only train I could take to be able to make it in time to Udhampur, and from Udhampur, because there are no trains so I didn't know. So for instance, when I took the Sri Shakti Express, I went up till Katra while I didn't need to because I wasn't very sure of how safe Udhampur was at 2 in the morning. I think Udhampur is like an hour earlier if you're going from Delhi. So I went to Katra, stayed there for a bit, then took a public passenger train back to Udhampur. Then I had to take like a jeep to get to this place called Banihal in the Kashmir Valley. Yeah, that was the only time, even in Darjeeling, like New Jalpaiguri, I did have to take a jeep to go to the base of the railway where it starts to go to Darjeeling.
Okay.
So yeah, I went to Banihal. So I think the Kashmir Valley and taking trains during the raining and cold season in Kashmir probably. I don't know whether to call it interesting because interesting sounds so pleasant and so nice and stuff. It wasn't exactly that. So I got into Banihal. The timetable that you see on the internet and the way the trains run, they may not run exactly the same way because, of course, Kashmir is not a very normal place. Things don't run like a city, like how things run in other parts of the country. So the army which controls the railway as well, they are the only people who are providing any sort of public utility service. So I got into the train and they were closing. So they closed the doors of the railway station, of the platforms 10 minutes before the train is about to leave. So you won't get tickets if you arrive just 10 minutes before the train is about to start, and the doors may be closed. So we were like a group of 10 or 15 people who had gotten off that jeep and off 2 or 3 jeeps, and we had to really push our way through the door. No tickets, and I had to jump the platform because the train was on the other side. And I looked at the overhead bridge and I was like, if I take this overhead bridge and if this is going to start in the next couple of minutes, I've missed this train and then I don't know what happened because there was absolutely no information so I got into that train and I probably for the first time in my entire life felt a bit, I felt like a foreigner in my own country. I think not a lot of other Indians from other parts of the country take those trains, the passenger trains from Banihal to Baramulla. So all the locals were staring at me because, and I'm not saying that they were hostile. They were staring at me only because it was not a very common occurrence to see someone like me on that train, So I didn't know. So just to give you some perspective, Banihal and the train line goes north. 3.5 hours you reach Baramulla, but in midway somewhere is Srinagar, and most people were getting off at Srinagar. And I asked people whether they knew if the train was going Baramulla, and most people didn't know because everyone was getting off at Srinagar. So I felt that maybe it would be a risk to just go to Baramulla without knowing the situation and whether the train was going up there, because some trains which stop one stop before Baramulla. I think it's Sopore, if I'm not wrong. Sopore. So I didn't want to take that chance. So I got off at Srinagar, and what followed after that in the evening, has to be the other incredible experience of 25 days, 25 trains. I was hanging out with the RPF guys, because those are the only people at the railway station. And I asked them that I want to take this train, I want to go to Baramulla, and then I want to come back. And they said, okay, there's a next train which will go, you can take that train. And then in that RPF room where we were using heaters to keep ourselves warm, a tall, lanky, pretty good-looking Kashmiri man, RPF, it was a cop, came in and he started talking to me. And I would speak in Hindi, but he would respond to me only in English. It was interesting. I was like, okay, now, so why is this happening? Then he said, why don't you walk out with me? Let's have a cup of tea together. So we had a cup of tea and we started chatting, and he started asking me if I used to listen to Beyonce and Justin Bieber, if I had watched Nightcrawler, the new movie, Dictator, the movie and all of that. I was like, actually, I don't. And then he's like, यार बॉम्बे में रहते हो करते क्या हो? And I told him, I'm always traveling and movies and stuff is good, but I'm not as much of a fanatic. So, but he had all these movies, all these songs downloaded on his phone, and everything. And so he then invited me. He said, don't go to Baramulla now in the evening while everything is fine. It's not a problem, but Baramulla is a sensitive area, and to be there in the dark may not be the most convenient or comfortable thing to do. So why don't you stay at my quarters tonight? And tomorrow morning there's a train which leaves at 8:30. Go to Baramulla in that, and then you come back and leave the valley. Everything fine. And it was already raining, and it was getting increasingly colder. I wasn't sure whether to accept that invitation, because
It's quite scary.
at the end of the day, all these stereotypes and everything do affect you. And I was like, okay, this guy's got a big gun, and he had a gun like a slinged on his back, and it was, if I'm not wrong, the AK-47 or whatever. So I was like, okay, so should I say yes or no? So I was like, okay, let me have a conversation with him for an hour, because in an hour and a half there was another train which would have taken me to Baramulla. I would have reached in the dark, but I was like, okay, if I don't feel safe with him, I'll probably take that train. Yeah, so I kept talking to him, and I realized he was a genuinely nice person. He had spent a lot of time in Bombay, in Bihar, and had seen some part of the country. So he understood and things, and he was very, very liberal, and was interested in movies and music and stuff. So I was like, okay, let's throw caution to the wind. I don't think anything will go wrong, but I decided to stay with him that night, and it was a great evening. He made cups of tea. He made some mutton dal and with really delicious Kashmiri rice. And in the cold, when you have that hot rice with dal, it tastes like the best dish.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So we stayed that night, and I stayed at his place. Next morning, next morning it had started raining quite heavily. It started snowing as well. And he told me that go to Baramulla, just touch base the station if that's what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But try to get out of there as soon as possible, because in the next 2 hours, the valley is going to flood, and then you will be stuck here for a long time. Reached Baramulla, and according to the piece of paper that I had, there was a train an hour later from Baramulla to go back to Nihal. But when I got off the train, it was snowing. So for the first time in my life, I was walking on snow. And I was thinking, okay, so I'm going to spend some time here. And there's also some guy some acquaintance I had made in Baramulla. He was coming to the railway station to meet me and to, take me to his place and maybe have a cup of tea and stuff. He was on his way. And I asked the army guy, I was like, okay, I'm going to leave my bag here, just click pictures and come back. I'll take the next train, which is an hour later. He said today is Wednesday, and today is no other train except the same one which is leaving now in 10 minutes. So, which meant that I couldn't make it to the end of the station, the board, the signboard of the station. I couldn't make it there. I had to get back into the train immediately because it was about to leave. And I could just make a video of the train leaving Baramulla station. And my friend was running towards the railway station. And it was almost like a DDLJ, but there was no romance involved.
No bromance.
Yeah, bromance maybe. So 4 hours I was back in Banihal, and then I took a jeep to come back to Jammu and stayed in Jammu for a couple of days, and then started going down south towards Rajasthan and all that. Yeah.
Okay. So 3 points of the challenge are done by this point, right?
3 points are already done by.
You still have your sanity, everything fine?
No, I think at this point, I had started becoming a bit wary of the journey, and I was looking forward to get back home and be a bit stable. With the moving, my orientation was a bit messed up. My brain wasn't very stable. I was now starting to build a wall around myself despite not having any form of entertainment. I wasn't really in the mood to have a lot of conversations and explain the project over and over again to people. I just wanted to stay quiet and just get done with it. And fatigue had started setting in. So as I went from Jammu south towards Rajasthan. I think I can't remember the station. Maybe it was Jaipur. Yeah, I reached Jaipur at like some odd hour in the morning at 2 or 3. Then I had a train again at 4. So to use stuff like using the toilets, getting something to eat. The food had been terrible because Indian Railway is not everywhere you get good food. There are stretches where the food can be really pathetic. And so I somehow made it to Udaipur. And by that time, I was really tired. And I went out into the city. One of my friends who's from Udaipur, one of my closest friends, his name is Akshat, he had told me about this egg stall. So I went to that egg stall and I realized that was a bit of a find. That egg stall had about 51 or 52 egg dishes. So this guy, Jai Kumar Valecha, he was a bit like an egg magician, He would just keep experimenting with egg dishes. And he was pretty popular in Udaipur. A lot of people from different parts of North India would come to his place. So that sort of materialized. Of course, it wasn't really a thing on the 25-day 25 train thing. But I eventually wrote a story about him for a very good American digital travel magazine called Roads and Kingdoms.
Okay.
So that was a very good story. So that happened because I bumped into him while doing this project.
Mm-hmm.
So I ate, and then from Udaipur to Ahmedabad, I had to take the meter gauge train. Started at 5 in the evening. I was supposed to reach Ahmedabad at 5 in the morning. Generally, this journey takes 5 hours. Just because I had taken that meter gauge route, it took almost little less than 12 hours, but more or less that much. Now, of all these days of this crazy itinerary, and I was pretty sure before I was leaving that midpoint or even before midpoint, somewhere I'm going to miss some train and I will not be able to keep up with this itinerary that Natarajan had created. But to both Natarajan and my surprise, most of the trains were on time and everything was okay. Even if they were late by like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So I still had another 30 minutes to get to the next train, even if I was changing. Only this train which reached Ahmedabad from Udaipur, which otherwise is always on time. So if you look at its performance, it's always on time because it takes so much time anyway, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason, by coincidence, that train was an hour delayed. I missed the next train, which had taken me to Dwarka, Okha, the westernmost railway station. And I got off at Ahmedabad and I tried to figure out how to do it again. The only option that was available to me was to take a car or something or road transport to go to Dwarka, which I wasn't keen on doing because the entire idea of the project was to use the railway to get to these places. Also, a couple of hours later in the morning, I realized that I really wasn't able to carry my backpack. It's very strange. I always carry only as much stuff that I can, bear the weight of. And to me, whenever I find it very tiring to, lug my backpack on my back, it means something is wrong. So I realized that there was something. I was sick. I was either fatigued out or sick or something was really wrong with me. I spoke to my mom and she said that, you've already done so much. It's not like not reaching Okha is going to make people think that you didn't give it your best. So why don't you just come back home? And because a couple of weeks later, I was also supposed to leave the country for the next project. So then that day I decided to take the Gujarat Express, which starts at 10 in the night or something from Ahmedabad, reaches Bombay at 7 in the morning. That entire day I watched, so I just went to a multiplex, watched 2 movies back to back. I think one in Ahmedabad, one was Badlapur and the second was, what was that movie with Ayushmann Khurrana and that movie, Dam Laga Ke Haisha, something like that, right?
Dam Laga Ke Haisha, okay.
So watched these movies back to back. Met a friend who had become friends with me on this Udaipur to Ahmedabad train. We were hanging out together for a while. And then took this train, came back to Bombay and just came back home and I was really sick and my mom insisted that I go see a doctor immediately. Went to the doctor. Doctor got me to do some tests, and we realized that I probably was carrying malaria for a couple of weeks without
God.
Yeah. So that's how it ended. Then I was like, they gave me, of course, gave me medicines and stuff. I was home for a couple of days. I think it took me about 4 or 5 days to recover. That's that. That's how 25 days came. Right?
Yeah,
It would seem like a sad ending, but it is not. I really look back to it, and I'm very fond of it. I don't know if I will ever do it again, but it was interesting nevertheless.
It's sad that you were down with malaria for the last leg of the journey, but in our books it is accomplished, and I'm sure your grandkids will love this, Sachin.
I know.
Okay, cool.
Well, it's been one hell of a ride, and I can't imagine. I think the longest train journey I've had is like 3 days and 2 nights, and that's just my limits. I could imagine 25 days and 25 trains.
It's amazing. And a lot of things that you've done. Amazing.
Yeah, it's such a
Sachin.
variety of things that you've done, and staying true to that 12 project challenge that you're calling it. Sachin, what's the best way for our listeners and people to follow your work and get in touch with you?
Okay, so earlier I used to blog on Eccentrips. That's ECCENTRIPS, like trips, eccentrips.com. So a lot of my stories are on Eccentrips. There's a YouTube channel by the same name. There's a Twitter handle by the same name. There's an Instagram by the same name, @ECCENTRIPS. But since now the focus of Eccentrips is a bit more, it goes beyond narrating my stories. It is about creating a community and helping people take long-term purposeful trips. So the idea is that more people take learning projects and sabbaticals and maybe gap years after done with university. That's the entire idea. At a personal, now for my personal stories, I've started a Twitter handle called Eccentrics, Sachin, ECCENTRISSACHIN. There's an Instagram handle by the same name. There's also a blogspot by the same name, ECCENTRIC, Sachin.blogspot.com. So between both these, most of my stories are covered, but I also write for a lot of publications. And if somebody just types my name, that's Sachin Bhandary in Google, a lot of these stories should come up. I also have a pretty decent profile on this website called Contently, CONTENTLY, contently.com. So if somebody types bhandarisachin.contently, it will throw up all the stories that I write for other newspapers, magazines. Yeah. So a few places, but I think but the best way to follow and to stay in touch with my Twitter, that's also on Facebook. There's a page by the same name, Eccentrics Sachin.
Okay.
If anyone wants to write to me, talk to me, have a conversation, more than happy to do so.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sachin. We would be adding all these links in our show notes below. Thank you so much for being a wonderful guide and making us feel so nostalgic about trains. I'm so sure Saif and I would definitely be planning a train trip soon. And I'm so sure our listeners also would be. Thank you so much, Sachin.
No problem. It was a pleasure talking to you guys, and I wish you guys luck. I wish more power, more strength to the Musafir Stories, and hope it becomes like one of the top-rated podcasts in the country and in the world for travel very soon.
Thank you so much. Take care. That was yet another great episode of the Musafir Stories. If you guys like the show, please subscribe to us on iTunes, Audioboom, Stitcher, Pocket Radio, or any other podcasting app that's available on iOS or Android. You could also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We go by the handle The Musafir Stories. Or, if it suits you, you could email us at themusafirstories@gmail.com and visit our website www.themusafirstories.com for more information. All of these links will be made available in the show notes section of the podcast. So here's to more traveling, sharing, and inspiring. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, happy travels and goodbye.